Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Eric, and this is FORMCAST. Today, I have a very special panel of speakers, not one, but three guests, all from Lucid, which is the new California electric car brand. So we've got Jenny Ha, who is the exterior design manager, the interior design director, Joann Jung, and Sue Magnusson, who is the director of CMF design. So thank you, first of all, to everyone here for joining me. It's really a great pleasure to see you all, and congratulations on an incredible job on the Air. It's the first Lucid vehicle that we've seen so far, but I'm definitely expecting good things to come from the brand. I first saw the Air in 2016 at Pebble Beach, and I was blown away. It was like absolutely incredible. It was simple, elegant, understated. I mean, it was just everything, and technology advanced as well, because of obviously it's an electric vehicle and the electric platform that it's based on. So what I'd like to do today is basically find out a bit more about what went into creating this vehicle. And I want to start from the inside and work my way out. So if we could start with Joann. Joann, you're Lucid's interior design director, and you're one of the earliest people to join Lucid, because you joined before Derek Jenkins, who's VP of design. But what made you kind of come over from Ford in Dearborn? Because you were there for almost 12 years, I think, and you joined essentially a company that was an unknown startup brand called Ativa at the time. So what got you interested in car design, and have you always been interested in cars? Like, how did you make your way into Lucid?
Well, I mean, thank you for introducing us. Who doesn't love cars? I love cars. And when I think about cars, a lot of folks think about it as an engine or a machine, mechanical product. But for me, it's something so beautiful, something to look at even when you were so young. So you don't even know the driving experience, but you look at it and it's fast. And it's all different colors, all different shapes. Somehow, I find that every brand, every OEM has their own personality. I think that's what brand is all about, not just about the badge. So growing up playing Lego with my brother, never a Barbie, gets bored in 5 minutes because you could only do so much. I don't think I was a tomboy. I do like painting. I do like making and building things. I don't think that makes me a tomboy, but I think that makes me a busy person, busy child, creative, always making a mess everywhere. It's just, I grew up with my mother, who is a painter, so it was very natural for me to be involved making and paintings and pretty much get your hands dirty. Long story short, art center, home away from home, became my place. And then I met very interesting people outside, but in a way it was me in all different form, different shape, different age, from different country. So I felt right, and I just came from Korea, so it was a time when I was looking for a place to belong. And not just the people, it's the work, and it's having fun together with the one purpose, creating something so beautiful that we could do more. And in a way, for me, is to make a better place. Art and design is a part of the history. Creating something so amazing that affects people's life will be lived on and will live on. So yeah, and that was the beginning. And moved to Michigan to do proper cars. People say when I said I'm going to Michigan, Ford Motor Company, and 100%, you are going to true America. Growing up in LA, this is like really happy place. But I think I did the right thing. So now I understand what it is to be a proper car designer, because it evolves a lot. It's not just Joann having fun with clay and sketching an alias. It's all about marketing. It's all about engineering. It's all about the thinking the future. And now it is really about the making a better place and doing the right thing. And I think we are at the right place. And I was getting this movement or need or desire to do more for the interior. And we were doing a lot, but it was always limited. And when you say, Eric, from inside out, that's exactly our CEO, Peter Rawlinson, when he interviewed me, that was the first thing he said. And that's all I had to hear. Coming from such a most brilliant man that I met, and knowing, understanding what the future is. Because he may be the most brilliant engineer, but you have to understand, he's also an artist.
Okay.
He understands when things are beautifully designed. When I say design, it's not just to look at it or touch it, but engineered well. And having those combinations, you can buy with money. So that's the reason why I came to Lucid. And who gets to be part of creating a new car brand?
Yeah.
No one. And we are the lucky ones. Of course, you have to come and giving yourself 3 years to look back. Ford Motor Company, I knew where we were heading, and I felt like I knew where I would be. But back then at Tiva, it was pitch black.
Right.
Either it could be really fun. I mean, I knew it would be fun either way, but you have to. If you've been searching for something, not knowing exactly what it was, when that opportunity presented to you,
you just got to grab the bull by the horns. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a great opportunity. I mean, but it is a risk. But again, when you know what you're able to accomplish, you just jump on that. Especially, as designers, you want to really move and make a difference, as you say. And so great. No, that's great. So moving into the car. I mean, if we talk about the Air, which, as I mentioned, is the first car that's going to come out from the brand, there's a remarkable flow to that interior that encircles the entire cabin, the occupants within that cabin. So, but the interior is actually two distinctly different zones. You've got a front kind of, performance aspect to that vehicle, and then you've got a rear kind of almost lounge, very relaxed, serene environment. And it's obviously contrasted by the colorways. So the thing that I love about it as well is that it's minimal, right? It's minimal, but it's not cold. It's technologically advanced and abundant, which is what, buyers are looking for. But clearly you've paid a lot of attention to precision, right? To the details. And that to me is the shapes as well as the overall user experience of the car, because you guys looked at a bunch of stuff. I mean, the quality, both perceived and tactile, the materials, the interplay of those materials. I mean, so tell me a little bit about that process. When you went in there, what was kind of the theme that you were going for and working towards?
I'm glad you noticed that, because it's all about the experience. It's all about what you want to touch. I say this a lot, but I want you, Eric, when you open our front door, I need you to touch our interior with your eyes only, before anything. And that's how we draw you. And then you want to touch things, because we are, it's in our instinct. We are drawn to beautiful things, and we're drawn into something that you want to touch, and you touch it. That's just the second. And third, I want you to feel the metal. I want you to feel what you're doing, because we're living in this heavily driven by digital world. Media device, your handheld device, we're very familiar controlling our machines, our lives through its screen. Yeah. But there is something fun about feeling cold metal, or when you rotate the knob, you feel the movement, right? And the rolling and toggle switches is the connection. It's the connection between human and the machine. Yeah. And again, back to car, is something to drive, something to have fun, something to do with your body. Literally, there is not a one single nerve system not feeling the movement when you are driving. Just physically, when there is a bump, your body feels it. When you're driving a V8, every time you change the gear, you feel it. And we have different sounds. It's not a turbo hissing sound, but it is the air sound. When I say air, it sounds like Lucid air, but you could feel the car is passing through air, and because it's so quiet. So it was for important for me and for us to give all the users not compromised experiences. Cars fast, everything's very intuitive. You are connected seamlessly with screen, and you are so used to it because you've been using it your whole life. But one thing that we're also missing is changing the gear. Well, we don't have gear, but you're still changing your volume or temperature, speed, and those very basic functions. You should be able to do it, and you should be able to feel it, and that gives us an opportunity to design more precise mechanical this craftsmanship, because in a luxury or experience, we believe that technology is one thing and it's continuously evolving. But in order for us to have our own voice, our color, our story is through our design, and having this DNA. What is it in Lucid? Is very, very Silicon Valley, very intelligent vehicle, but at the same time, there is this incredible human touch. When we will ask Sue Magnusson, our CMF guru, she knows all about human touch and the colors and this little elements, very earthy, very human. For me, I knew that, and we had a screen. For me, our team was to develop the machine part of interior. But in the front, it's all about that. Driving is a cockpit. You have all this tactile, and you have a fast speed. Everything is ever so slightly towards the driver, so that you get that I'm in command. But that's just a one person out of four. So what do we do with the rest of them? And the one behind will be complete lounge. And we do that. I've done this many times through many show cars. But I think this time we feel like we nailed it through making literally calming. Like it is okay not to have everything in your eyes. It is okay to have everything to be calm, because your body, your eyes will thank you.
Yeah.
So having that, like being able for us to wear customer's hat and being able to detach ourselves from being a designer to a user. And I think that's where I learned the most at Lucid, working together with Sue.
Right. No, I mean, I'm really happy that you brought up the experience, because that to me is what that interior and that car really is all about. It's like it's coming at you from all angles, where you're appreciating the design from all sorts of, it's not just, oh yeah, I like that bit, I like that. It's like it's so holistic, right? That feeling that you get by looking and feeling and seeing. And again, like I had the privilege to see that car. Again, it was prototype, but it was a running prototype, and you guys didn't stray very far from what I saw that day on the lawn in Pebble. So, okay, and not to detract anything from you and your team, Joann, but I think the interior, what really makes it pop, what really makes it work is the CMF, and the way that everything is just kind of, blended so incredibly well together. And so the material use, the colorways, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, and so that brings me to Sue. So Sue, you're the director of CMF design, and you started out at Audi and Volkswagen, if I'm not mistaken. Then you became, you were the founding partner and the director of design for your own O2 design or studio design consultancy, where you worked with a number of companies on design as well as strategy in electronics and the automotive industry. And then you joined Lucid, But at some point, you also worked with Chuck Pelly at DesignWorks in the early days of your career.
I
So
did.
that's a really amazing thing. So tell me a little bit about your story. Like, how did you get into working with cars and in the auto industry?
Well, actually, I didn't set out to work in the automotive industry only because I didn't know this area of design actually existed.
Okay.
It's often in the past been called color and trim. But since, like Joann, very, very early on, I fell in love with cars. I don't know why. I was fascinated just by my own spaces, even the homes that my home that I lived in. I was constantly like somehow changing it to give me a sense of happiness or a sense of joy or comfort. And my parents were scientists. And so I was definitely sort of the child that they didn't fully understand, but I can articulate it much better now through all my years of like understanding who I am. And I think from very early on, I just saw the world a little bit differently and was really desiring to make these changes. And I started out as an interior designer, mostly because I wanted to be an interior architect or an architect, but ended up sort of in the space planning of interior design. I had my children very young, so I ended up going to a local university. But a few years into it, I had this opportunity to go work for DesignWorks, which, as we know, is now owned by BMW. So I've known Chuck Pelly a long, long time. And when I discovered that there was this color and trim aspect, I just begged Chuck to please let me work in that department. Eventually, he relented and allowed me to be in that department. And I just felt like it was home to me. I still to this day pinch myself that I get to do this job. It's that thrilling to me. And I still have such a passion for materials, creating spaces that I think create an experience, like Joann says. And I kind of started from there. I ended up going to Volkswagen and Audi. That's where I met Derek Jenkins. And we just really connected. And after I left the automotive industry, I started my own company and still sort of, had clients in the automotive industry, but did a lot of work with Fortune 500 companies. And I learned so much through that process, and really enjoyed it. But what I was starting to miss as time went on was really being in a bigger team collaboration. And when Derek went to Ativa at the time, he reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested. And after meeting the team, I met Joann and a lot of the team members there. I just thought, wow, there's this crazy amount of talent here. And it was a little intimidating. Having been out of the auto industry, but I just felt like, wow, if I don't take this opportunity, I'm really going to wonder what I missed, or I was a little bit afraid of sort of failing. And I'm not even really sure why, because once I got into the group and started working with Jenny and Joann and really connecting in that collaborative way, I mean, I knew that I wanted to collaborate like in a way that I've never had that ability to collaborate within a corporate world. And it was really trying to establish that relationship with Jenny and her team and Joann and her team. And it just became a seamless sort of way of communicating. I literally sit in between those two areas in the studio. I can just lean over and talk to Joann. I mean, we basically sit back to back, and then Jenny's just one seat over from that. Right. And that's made such a huge difference, because when Joann and I started talking about the interior and sort of her vision and the fact that she was thinking about beyond the driving experience, I love that idea. And I started to also think about like
air is going to be this conduit for the experience. Yes, it's going to be a beautiful car and have a lot of other experiences within. I mean, it's an amazing car to drive. It blows your mind, the technology. But even sitting in our back seat, it's a really special experience. And I know that you saw the car at Pebble Beach and I was there. And a lot of people waited a long time to sit in the back seat. They wanted to be in the back seat almost as much or more than they wanted to be in the front seat. Mm-hmm. And I talk about this a lot because that's like so unusual. And it just told me so much about being able to sort of accomplish this through design and through the materials. And obviously this duality of our textiles and our materials and how we've laid them out really supports that idea. So I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did. Look, I mean, the whole thing that I love about doing these podcasts is, we just just go with the flow. And, I love your story and thank you for telling it. Like, there is no real structure. It's just very organic conversations that we're having. So thank you very much for sharing that. But, so, I mean, look, I watched the online reveal and you really, with the CMF that you've put out there, right? It's you really harness the spirit of California. I used to live in California. I miss it greatly. But I was incredibly impressed by that. I mean, I think you and Nathan Barber of the brand design, I mean, you guys really hit the nail on the head. You did a wonderful job with telling the story of Lucid's origins and creating an emotional connection with the brand through all of your destinations and that you and your team created, as well as the communication assets, the brand, the color, everything California. These themed environments that are based on locations like Santa Monica, Tahoe, Mojave, right? It's elegant, natural, and optimistic, right? It's not. So tell me a little bit about your thought processes and how you developed CMF for not only the air, but the brand, right? How did you choose to pair what you did with what you did?
So let's see. The moment I walked into the main studio, in sort of 5 years ago when I joined, I was living in a smaller studio. I think there's some truth to that. There was a poster up and it had what I call pillars of kind of what makes California special. And I knew that in designing CMF that we were really building a brand, and I had nothing to lean into. We had literally no legacy. And my methodology in design has always been to sort of like dig into the mindset of the brand, dig into the language, understanding form factors of what's been sort of created before and how can we mature that, advance it, evolve it. And we didn't really have that. We had a blank sheet of paper, a black space, like Joann says. I like to think of it as a blank sheet of paper. And I knew that we couldn't look like Audi or the German brands, Mercedes, or the British brands, or the Italian brands. It's like they all had a real clear heritage. And so this poster just spoke to me. And when I really started to think about it, it became such an important sort of topic that was sort of running through my head. And I started to talk with the designers about it. I'm really big at like wanting to talk about bringing in the design team from interior and exterior, from brand, and just sort of having dialogue, because I was trying to navigate like where we needed to land. And I drive in from Santa Cruz. I live in Santa Cruz, was working in Menlo Park at the time, and that's maybe a 65-mile trip. I go over a mountain range. I go along the coast. And I was leaving quite early in the morning, and oftentimes at moonlight. And then by the time I got up until the top of the summit of the mountain range, the sun was just coming up. And I was starting to discover that the light during certain times of that morning was really beautiful. And then, of course, one of my favorite times is this golden hour, just before this, as the sun is setting, sort of getting low. I live on a beautiful piece of property in Santa Cruz, and how the light sort of filters through the trees and runs across my horse pastures. And I just started to think, I grew up in Southern California. I was living in Northern Cal now. And I just started to think like, during certain times of day in different locations, the light is just so beautiful. And so we started to talk about that idea and then started to think about the different locations. And it really just unfolded in such a natural way and became, to me, a really authentic way of approaching our brand. And that's really how it started.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I love that story because, one, there's a bit of nostalgia to it as well, for me, because I do remember that time living there and, just driving up Route 1, which I do as often as possible, when I'm able to travel. I always make it back every summer and drive up Route 1 just to breathe in that California coastline. But okay, so like there's one thing about the Air that obviously is a huge USP, right? Is the electric vehicle aspect. But because of that, you need to blend in sustainability, and that's another story that I really love, is that sustainability story, which was clearly a big part of the design, a big element of the design process. Tell me a little bit more about that.
One of the interesting things, sort of stepping back a little bit, as to why I really wanted to work at Lucid, was because we were building an electric vehicle. And I had designed so many consumer electronics in my lifetime. And I just thought, as I've gotten older and more mature, I've been able to afford to have better quality products in my life. I've been able to buy things that have more longevity to them. And even my daughters, I think it's just their generation, they're much more into not wanting to buy just products that are going to go into the landfill. They really are very thoughtful about that. And so there was a real personal aspect to wanting to build a car from a sustainable perspective. I mean, it was a personal goal of mine, but also, of course, it was an inherent part of building an electric vehicle. And, I worked really hard to build that in, and started from the very beginning, just even looking at the suppliers that we were going to be working with. Even if we couldn't be working with like 100% bio-based material, I wanted to make sure that the manufacturing processes were clean, where the raw materials were coming from, like just thinking about the logistics and the energy of where was this raw material coming from? How far did it have to travel to get to the manufacturer to develop it? And then how far did that manufacturer have to ship it to us? So even that dialogue was really early on in the process. And that was part of how we selected our suppliers in the first place. So that was a big piece of it. And of course, then some materials were easier than others to be sustainable,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what were some of the materials that were perhaps more challenging? Because a lot of people think leather, leather, but if you get the right suppliers, I mean, the process isn't all that, it is environmentally friendly and sustainable. It all depends on how it's done. So what were some of the materials that you found to be challenging in that respect?
Yeah. So, well, even leather, of course, we looked at, and we were working with one of the best, lowest emissions, zero emissions leather supplier in the world. The raw goods come locally. Their processes are clean. It's a completely closed loop cycle. And that was super important to us. There's a lot of argument about, this term vegan leather versus leather. And I don't necessarily care to get into that, because we are offering leather, and it is a byproduct of the food industry, and where the raw goods comes from is very close by. And I really have appreciated that with our leather company. We work with a textile company now that I wasn't aware of this, but when we met them, they were using, of course, 100% recycled polyester from water bottles coming out of municipalities for the most part. There's a lot of talk about ocean plastics. And my personal feeling on this is great. Ocean plastics are wonderful. Let's get it out of our oceans, but let's get it out of our landfills too. So I personally don't care where the bottles come from and where the plastic's coming from, as long as we're recycling it and reusing it. So that's my philosophy. And I think in general, that's our philosophy at Lucid. Let's just do the right thing. For me, I don't want to tell the story so much. I mean, it's important to tell a story, but I just want it to be a real story. I don't want it to be this romantic story. I just want to make sure it's really a clean product.
Right.
I think some of the challenges have been, we're still using metallized processes. We're still using non-leather materials. And so that's still coming from fossil fuel, but we're pushing very, very hard on our suppliers to reduce the fossil fuel and to reduce how they're being processed. So using more water-based processes, less toxic processes. Even I'm concerned about the people in the plants who are using these, manufacturing these. I want it to be a clean process. And so we're pushing very hard. And I think now for our next product, Gravity, you're going to see, I think, a much higher percentage of these materials, not only from our A surface, what you see and touch, but also on our subsurfaces. And I'm really excited about that. We're pushing this through our organization in a really big way. Everybody's on board with this, because it takes not just CMF design or interior and exterior, Jenny and Joann's desire to want to do this as well and to design it in for us, but it takes engineering and it takes supply chain and it takes, a lot of support that way. So, but I feel like we're on a really good trajectory for that.
Brilliant. No, that's great. I mean, it's so important, sustainability now, and you mentioned, every aspect of it. It's not just, how the materials are done but it's also the people that are working to create these materials. So, all right, well, moving on to the exterior now of the car, where CMF also plays a large role. I mean, such the aluminum trim piece, for example, on the cant rail leading the T-pillar. So, Jenny, you are the exterior design manager, and you also started your career at VW Audi in California after studying at Art Center, and then you joined Lucid as an exterior designer. Then you were promoted to senior exterior designer, and now you are exterior design manager. So tell me a little bit about your story. I mean, were you always interested in cars, or what brought you to pursue a career in the automotive industry?
Yeah, I mean, Joann said, who doesn't really like cars? I was really into, ever since I was little, I was drawing and building, painting quite extensively, spending all my hours doing that. So, one of the things I always loved to do since I was, younger, I collected a lot of the reference images for my artwork. And that's how I got to sort of started to collect, getting into all this classic car photography. And that's, I think, how I, even before I started driving, that's how I got to really appreciate the design of the car and love the fact that it reflects the culture. The design reflects the technology of that age. And all that was super fascinating. So, of course, I love the original Countach, LP 400s. And I remember the first sketch project I started to do for our center portfolio was Alfa Romeo GTV, like GT Junior. So, I had like a couple of cars from classic that, of course, made me really, engaged in the whole kind of story behind the cars. And what I didn't really know until I actually walked into our center, that there is a school that teaches car design. So, essentially our center really inspired me to be a car designer. which was I was very lucky because I walked in there just to take a Saturday high school program for figure drawing, so it was a very it was sort of meant to be. So
Right.
that's since then I've been loving it. I mean, Audi Studio was my dream studio really, since at school, like, because I love like TT and A7. Those are one of my favorite cars that keeps the clean but unique proportion, and the Volkswagen DCC has such a variety of brand that you can work on. You get to work on Lamborghini, Porsche, Bentley, here and there. So it's a studio that really let you explore and pushes you to engage with different brands quickly, and at the same time multitasking. It was a good challenge for me, to kind of training for me for sure out of school, that really taught me how to design for each brand, and that's how it really started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. It's a great experience to have had. I mean, everybody that I know that came through the Volkswagen school is extremely talented anyway.
Yeah,
So, but
definitely trains you. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's great, and you get to work on a lot of different brands, certainly in that studio, as well as in Potsdam and all the rest. But um,
Mm-hmm.
so so tell me, like, when I saw the Air for the first time, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And I don't typically say that about cars, right? It's either like I like it or I don't like it. But to me, it was like there was this something like super pure and organic about that exterior design. I mean, the surfacing and the everything, the way that it plays, and then it's punctuated by technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got
Mm-hmm.
like these, the front, particularly the lighting, I suppose, but the way
Mm-hmm.
that you've integrated, it's like it's seamless integration of technology. Well, like the lidar, which is normally on any car like that you see, it's like an eyesore, an afterthought. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my god,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you've managed, obviously, with the team over there, to
Mm-hmm.
conceal
Mm-hmm.
it, to hide it, and to make it an integral part of the design, like, with the little shark fins at the back and everything. I mean, the way
Mm.
that it all comes together is really very well resolved, and ultimately, translates into a very welcoming, design.
Mm.
So tell me a little bit about the theme of the exterior. I mean, what were you going for? Because you worked with some different proportions there. I mean, tell me a little
Oh
bit about
yeah,
what
for
the goal
sure.
is.
Yeah, I mean, beginning from proportion, right? It's all about proportion in the beginning, and because we are designing from inside out, we had to, design this massive cabin space in a shorter footprint where it's easily becomes chunkier and taller, and not really elegant profile.
Mm,
And the goal for us was really to find how to elongate and make it sleek. And what's the really just working with body engineering team, and even from that on, what's the hard point number, like hard point numbers that we can, is it the height or is it the width? How can we make it look wide and sit well even with that massive cabin space? So that's where sort of even the theme was decided, because it was elongating the front even without the long hood. And even the cabin theme was decided because it was kind of capturing that cabin space without overly accentuating the length, but
mm,
actually kind of dividing with the details. So it's really proportional strategy, for per se. And of course, the clean look, we really wanted to, we thought that that's part of how we tell California luxury, understated elegant luxury, that we wanted to portray in the exterior. And that's where CMF role really comes in, because we're so like minimalistic and very seamless. So you giving that tonal difference to make that graphic pop, um, and have that contained details, technology details to be, celebrated.
yeah.
So, I think looking looking back, the only reason we were able to really resolve and maintain those details well integrated was all because all due to the process we were pursuing. Like when we had the main theme, we were spending like every week talking to even Peter, our at that time chief technology officer, CTO was there every single week. We were discussing how to make the integration work better, like discussing millimeters. So Peter and Derek, they're the leaders that really hands-on, like watching and discussing together to make the best decisions, right? So I think it was pretty incredible experience to, really see their thought process and be able to propose our work, from this exterior design team, from exterior engineering team to, really make a plan and always put forward solutions and to be able to do that repeatedly for a long time, it allows you to actually integrate it without just like, plugging in the grill. So I think that's it was very. I feel really lucky that it took a long time, but we're really happy with we designed a product that we're really proud of because of that reason.
No, most definitely, and you should be. I mean, you were working with Alexandre Girard at the time, I believe, right? Who was the exterior design manager then.
Yes.
And he's a great guy, super talented guy as well. But
Sure.
I mean, I the proportions of that car, look, it's, I had a chat with Derek about this as well, and it's like, it's a traditional sedan, but it's not, right? It's like so fresh. It's got 4 doors and a trunk and all that jazz, but the way that, and you mentioned it, the hood isn't as long as a traditional car, and that's typically, dash to axle is how you measure luxury, right? And so moving everything, and I think the Y0 is way further back as well, further towards the backlight. So just shifting those proportions around, and then of course the detailing, right, where you've got these lamps in the front and the rear, and then this, convex concave surfacing going down the sides with the light playing off of it. Not to mention the graphic on the top with the aluminum panel over there, and the everything together is just so serene. So no, definitely congratulations. I mean, it's a brilliant product.
Thank you. Yeah, I think because exterior in the end, it's kind of creating a character that we want to portray, and everything sort of really came from wanting to show the character of the car. It is a luxury vehicle. But it is providing a luxurious space inside. But at the same time, it's such a performance car. Like it's a monster. So you want to show that through surfacing and the stands, and even though it's not a loud character, like it's not trying to showcase that we're really fast and aggressive. But so that finding that kind of balance and the character that we wanted to show as our first impression, I think that was the most fun part.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of really innovative solutions, in the shut lines in the trunk and the way it opens and all the rest. I mean, that's proper design, and Joann mentioned this earlier in the beginning. It's design is not just about how it looks, but how it functions, right? Everything that works well together and comes out with that holistic solution. And so, as a team, you guys just have killed it. I mean, honestly, I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And it's one of the reasons I also wanted to speak with you guys, though, is because all 3 of you are in a leadership position within Lucid, and in an industry where traditionally it's been dominated by men. And so 3 of you are managers and directors, and you've achieved a high level within your careers. And I've been covering automotive design for 15 years, and I always speak with men. In fact, this is the first podcast that I've ever done with female guests. So yeah,
that's awesome.
And it just so happens that today is International Women's Day, so that's a happy coincidence as well.
Yeah, thank you. This is very very special for us too.
It's a great pleasure. So, but okay, so I mean, look, seeing the automotive industry, not only design, but the industry as a whole, right? Being overwhelmingly run by men has always rather surprised me, right? Because there are a lot of women drivers. Women have a lot of purchasing power. I personally don't do much of anything without my wife approving it, right? And she has her own sensibilities and preferences as well. So, of course, there are women in the industry, but, many are in CMF rather than exterior interior design. And to be honest, men are just disproportionately represented. So I guess, if I were to ask the three of you, from your perspective, what's your view on the current state of diversity within the automotive industry?
Anybody to start?
I could start. I mean, this is our favorite topic, Eric. Really. Before, honestly, it was very uncomfortable when we were asked, but now it's not. It is really great platform for us to discuss because we all get that all the time. I know it was heavily just a mechanical machine, speed. So therefore, it was, a lot of engineers. I'm not going to try to be a man because I love being a woman. I think we make things really sexy and beautiful. That's where the car, automotive, comes in. It is a beautiful object. But I think more and more, it's not about just the machine. It's all about the software. It's all about the experiences. It became all about identity equals beauty. And that's where a lot of female folks are interested. Not just the engine, the metal, the grease. That was a car 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now cars are your living space, your lifestyle. It's the extension of your lifestyle, which we get it. So it's per the sake of lack of interest before, lack of exposure. I think that was the main reason, I believe, that a lot of men were dominating auto industry. But now that, I am doing my part, three of us are doing our part to expose ourselves and educate and let our story to be heard, that it is a really fun place to be in. And it's really amazing, beautiful project, intellectual, interesting, fascinating thing to design. So the fashion designers, architects, or the fabric designer, or software engineer, software designers, graphic designers. I think we all, product designer, definitely. I don't design interior. Interior is designed by a million little products. Really, like a steering wheel, the knobs and the switches, those are a product. But when you think about canopy, roof, rail system, that's house, the living room. When you think about the seats, that's a sofa, that's a furniture design. So I think that's the main thing that I want to express, that it's not just a automotive design. It is all about lifestyle design, which we understand and we love it. And we're pretty good at it, I think. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on it's changing. And there was a reason, and now there's reason for bigger audience.
Yeah. So your contention then is that more women, we'll see more women basically working in the automotive industry, and it'll become more attractive and interesting to them because of the change in propulsion.
Yes.
Primarily. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm all about sharing fun, so why not?
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, I have to say at Lucid, we are very well respected. I never feel like there's this topic about, well, you're a woman or a man. I rarely get that, and it's very possible because I'm been doing this for so many years. I'm a much more mature woman. And I think in some ways, just my maturity is, sort of naturally more respected. So I think Jenny and Joann certainly could maybe speak to if there's differences there. But I have to say, I've watched Jenny and Joann command a room full of men talking about highly technical things, pushing back on them. And for me, I get just this such deep pride in sort of the observation of that. And it's probably because when I started my career, there was a little bit more of this man-woman thing. But I definitely don't experience that at Lucid. And certainly not in our design group at all. I mean, I feel like we, have the respect and expertise, but I still do acknowledge when I'm standing in a room with 20 or 30 men and they're looking at me for the answer. And, it makes me feel really proud. And I love watching Jenny and Joann, do their thing, and they're the experts in the room. And there's something really special about that to me. I'm constantly sort of internally acknowledging it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you work alongside engineers and aerodynamicists and all sorts of different guys, which are, almost exclusively men. But you also near San Francisco, which is, many see as being, one of the more progressive parts of the country, right? So, I mean, I think there's a cultural aspect to that. I think if I were to ask these questions to somebody working in Italy, perhaps, or France, I might have a different, maybe in Korea as well, right? It might be a different story, right?
Because we're in that topic, I still talk to some of the other departments, design departments from our center, like graphics or products, and the experience, I think in automotive, because it's such a special and small, that I think everyone is more careful of the way they act, the way they treat you. I think that's also part of the reason. I think we're sort of, I hear less stories coming from our industry, and I feel like the amount of the number of designers really just comes from what Joann said, the exposure. I had to buy recently. It's a funny story. I had to buy my niece some car toys, proper car toys, because her room was getting filled with the kitchen gifts. And I was like, she's only 2 years old, and like this, she was playing with a kitchen, and I was like, okay, of course you can be inspired by that and become an amazing chef, or it's nothing wrong with that, but like you need to balance it out and give her the opportunity to, maybe she'll love playing with the car toys, and she's driving all everywhere with the car now, and I think it's just that culturally, of course, that I think there's going to be more shifts like this happens, and more, because whenever I ask my girlfriends there's an auto show or there's a Pebble Beach, if I have opportunity, I always ask my UX UI female designers who around this area, and they love to go see the classic cars, and they're all very interested. They love the cars. So I think it's all your own age. If more of them knew the options, more of them knew that this is what you could actually do, and you'll be the technology side, and I mean, not just the design side, but also the engineering side. I think the lack of exposure, maybe lack of care on for them to actually be great in these things. I think it will be changing. The change will come continuously now that there's more these type of thinkings out there. So
yeah, I think sorry, go on.
No, to add to Jenny and Eric, you're absolutely right. We are in the right place. We live in a different life, and I admit that, and I am very grateful. And I think they're living in San Francisco. in California to start with, very, open. But now we're in San Francisco, Bay Area, so we are in different environment. And I really don't think that I don't want to take this as disadvantage or granted. The reason why I said I do enjoy very much in this sort of a platform to talk about women in design, especially in auto industry, is because it is my role to let young students, young professionals who have any interest in designing or engineering or software engineers, because that's becoming really, really interesting and popular. It's not just men, it's for women too. And it's for us to let people know that it's not hard if you like what you do. And I don't think three of us feel like, we're going to work, it's surrounded by men. No, it's, wow, we finished that yesterday, and now we're gonna move on to Kent Rail or something else. But it's the collective work. And I'm not gonna lie, having Jenny and Sue, a lot of the female around me at work, I forget that I am one of few. And the hope is to have this sort of a work environment, not only car industry, but most of so-called male-dominant professional areas, that it becomes less of that, so that everybody is treated as individual versus gender. And so I really do appreciate giving us the platform to discuss that, and the honor of Women's Day, because I am very proud.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's no, this is great. I mean, look, I think ultimately it comes down to being exposed to something, right? When my daughter was born, I got her one of those little, strollers with a doll in it, and she, I've got like model cars all over the place here, and she took the doll and threw it on the ground and put a bunch of model cars in the stroller and was pushing it around the house. And I think it's just a question of being aware and knowing that this exists will certainly, and again, the industry is changing, right? Now you're talking about technology, you're talking about software, you're talking about all sorts of things that actually play into the process of designing a vehicle. And there's really no reason to, associate a car as a dirty, greasy thing anymore. So no, that is super interesting to hear you guys talk, because, I was going to say, my next kind of question was like, so, have you guys encountered any challenges, or, that you've had to overcome in your career? Like, what were some of those, being a woman in this, male dominated environment? But it sounds like perhaps there weren't, or am I mistaken in thinking that?
Eric, that's a whole different podcast. Where do I start?
But here is what I think is interesting about us. I do think there were things to overcome. And I've been at this for 30 years. And so, yes, I think there were some things that were to overcome. And I think perhaps there still are. But I think what Jenny, I and Joann have always believed in is basically this passion that we have for what we're doing, number one, and that none of us want to be one of the boys. We're okay with being women, and we're okay with being ourselves. And I think having that sort of clarity about who we are and why we're doing this job. I mean, the sole reason I get up, okay, yeah, we're designing a really cool thing, but the sole reason I get up to go to the job every day and drive my 70 miles is because I work with amazing people. And that's not just women, but it's men. And I think, honestly, that's what we hold close to our hearts, is that we just feel so grateful that we get to work in this industry that we love so much, and we've loved since we were children. And it's like, I still feel so grateful every single day, through all the challenges, the highs and the lows, that I get to work with these women that are here. I mean, they're sitting next to me every day. And I also work with a lot of incredible men.
Mm-hmm.
That's at the heart of it. But that's how we've
Yeah.
sort of walked our path.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, on that note, it's really important to, as I said earlier, get a range of different perspectives, right? Because you're designing for people, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not just one gender or another. You need to get these different perspectives in terms of, designing something that is going to appeal to these customers. So ultimately, it's really, you as a female may have a different design perspective than your male counterpart, but it doesn't mean that it's less valid, or indeed the male one is more valid, right? It's like you need to have both of those perspectives, and indeed I would say a multicultural perspective as well, not just gender,
Right.
but in
Right.
terms of like having a more diversified workforce. And ultimately, as you say, Sue, it's all about the team. It's all about the people that you surround yourself with, because that's
Mm-hmm.
where you get all of your inspiration and information. And you're with them 10 hours a day or whatever, right? Startup life.
Right.
But no, so
But who's counting?
So no, look, I love the fact that you guys have spent an hour or so with me now. I think, if you guys had any advice to impart, and this is going to be my closing question, I suppose, to all three of you, what would you do to kind of perhaps inspire women or men into a career in design? What kind of advice would you impart to someone that's either looking to become a car designer or looking to move up, as you guys have done, into managerial and directorial roles? What's your kind of 2 sentences advice, if you will?
Would you like me to start?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of the most important things to do is try to get into a good school in the field of your study and take as many internships as you can. I just believe you learn so much when you're in-house seeing the job done. And I think it also opens doors for opportunities, finding mentors, getting the experience. I think that's really a piece of it. And I think the other piece is, and maybe very cliche, but it's served me really well. And it's this phrase that my mom used to say is, when there's a will, there's a way. And so that just means like follow your passion, keep at it, do what it is that you love, because you're going to be spending a lot of time doing it, and it'll happen. You'll find a way towards it. So that's sort of my 2 pieces of advice, I guess.
Nice.
So I think it falls same category what Sue just mentioned. I think 3 of us at one point, we all taught at school. I think Jenny is teaching still. And I used to say to my class, if you're one of those lucky one like us, like me, this path, what you are studying, will give you a career, not a job, career, which will make you happy every day, because there is going to be somebody paying you to do what you love.
Yeah.
But at the same time, one day when you wake up and realize when your feet are heavy and all of a sudden it feels like you're walking, you're going into work, 180, turn around. It doesn't matter how much money you spend in school. It doesn't matter how many years you spend in your school, because it is your life, and look for another one. The reason why I say that is, again, 3 of us, 4 of us, including you, Eric. I know you're very happy with what you do. You have this smile on your face all the time even when you don't speak. And I really, really do enjoy meeting people like yourself, because we're happy, because we're doing what we love. And advice to everybody is find that, and look, 4 of us, we're just a bunch of happy grown-ups. And I think that's the key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great advice. So
Mm.
Jenny, go, your turn.
Yeah. No, so Joann just mentioned that I still I teach at transportation design and draw, BizCom and everything. And I think I try to the struggle, the hardest time comes when you're getting a first internship. And that's when you hit the wall, like because you're competing with everyone around the globe who's making an awesome portfolio. Everyone's now, building things in VRED, and everyone's kind of the competition. It's really tough. So if you want to, this is for sure, like everyone mentioned, the career that has so much potential in next 5 to 10 years. I really believe that it's going to be even more exciting than what we just did in like 6 years. But if you really want it, you have to commit, and your life really has to focus around it. And your everyday needs to be training yourself to be better and waiting for your time. Because when I first was waiting for my first internship, it was a struggle, because I know, like, okay, that guy who's interviewing with me has already internship experience and have like finished almost a school, have like sponsored projects, just in a better spot. And that he's going to graduate somewhere, and and be working, and your time will come, and until that, just commit yourself and don't look anywhere else. Just really focus on getting that. I think as long as you're really committed, I think you'll get what you love. But without commitment, without hard work, it's just way too competitive. So yeah, that's always my advice, to wait for your time, but keep training yourself until you wait, and don't give up. Then your time will come.
Absolutely. Brilliant advice from all of you. Thank you. Put in the work, do your thing, and be patient.
Right.
So no, look, it's been an immense pleasure to have you all on this FORMCAST podcast. I want to thank you again for taking the time and enlightening me, and all of our listeners as well. And again, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.